Yep, 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 yep. We're back reviewing our three of this great long debate. We're taking it nice and slow as usual. Now, if you're watching this, and I highly recommend that you aren't, but if you are, feel free to drop in a little commenty do. Comments for me, comments for you. And as we're on the topic during the debate right now, we're reviewing our three. We've already listened to it. We've already color coded the transcript for the most part. I actually haven't done norm. We have to color those red, but more or less got him. And this is on the topic of October 7th attack, also known as the Gaza Uprising. So it all kicks off with Benny Morris really just skipping over the details of what happened that day and focused a lot more on just talking about what Hamas believe and their ideology. I think almost in a mirror way as Zionism was the general topic of discussion under fire for the first couple hours, right? It was all about what is the principles of Zionism. Why was this the Nakba basically inevitable? I think Benny's trying to make a similar sort of angle here by focusing on the ideology of Hamas. Now, what's harder is that while he has many history books that he himself wrote that outline a lot of these arguments from the first 2 hours, for this, he is very light on evidence. Doesn't have anything. I know of at least one, I'm going to call it blatantly false claim, that in the 1988 Hamas charter, it refers to Jews as sons of apes and pigs. I don't think that's true. I mean, I read through it. I didn't read it exhaustively, but we did several word searches. It didn't talk about Jews as being sons of anything, let alone apes or pigs. So, Benny Morris says they murdered, raped, and did all the nasty things. And they took people to dungeons. Those are his claims. They murdered, they raped, and they did nasty things. So he says that according to their charter, which means that their charter, I don't know, a charter is this kind of like official document that sort of goes out to everybody to sort of let you know what your stance is, I guess. But this, he's claiming that whatever's in this charter is also represents like a deep and widespread ideology amongst Palestinians that they're taught from kindergarten. Okay, so this charter, which everyone agrees with in Palestine and follows to the letter, he says, is genocidal. It says that Jews must be eradicated basically from the land of Israel, from Palestine. The Jews are described there as sons of apes and pigs. The Jews are a base people, killers of prophets. They should not exist in Palestine. It doesn't say that they should necessarily be murdered all around the world, but that they should be eliminated from Palestine. So it's interesting that he uses Benny Morris, who before, when we were talking about the movement of people, he called it transfer. And he would always use a very passive language of like, he didn't say transfer of the Arabs a lot. It would just say there was transfer, right? But when it's talking about transferring the Jewish population, he says that Hamas thinks Jews should be eliminated. Why doesn't Hamas think Jews should be transferred? You know, is he editorializing his language? Stephen Bonell might have something to say about that, about your editorializing. Why would you always say transfer, but now you're saying eliminated? Because that implies killed, right? You'll be eliminated from Palestine. When, you know, if someone leaves a place and they never return, are they eliminated from it? Could be. He says it's the driving ideology behind the massacre. He also claims that Hamas knew that the Israeli counteroffensive would result in many Palestinians dead, and they hope to benefit from this in the eyes of the world public opinion. That's quite a claim. He's like, so Hamas's goal was to get as many Palestinians killed as possible so that in the eyes of the world, they would look more favorable. As Israel chased these Hamas people and their ammunition dumps and so on and killed lots of Palestinian civilians in the process, all this was understood by Sinwar. He strived for that. But initially, he wanted to kill as many Jews as he could. Okay, so he's kind of like tacking that on at the end, but he says this is the initial, right? So the driving ideology, remember, is that Jews must be eradicated. So initially he wanted to kill as many Jews as he could in the border areas around the Gaza Strip, right? Why did they take prisoners then? Why did they take hostages? And as you claim, they raped people. Like, why? Their goal was to kill as many Jews as they could. They could have killed more. Especially the hostages that they kept alive and fed for a long time. But then he initially wanted to kill as many Jews as he could. But then what? Then he hoped that it would result in many Palestinian dead. So he wanted to kill as many Jews as he could. And then he just said, no, actually, let's kill as many Palestinians as we could. That was Hamas's strategy, according to Benny Morris. Again, not very convincing. Light on facts. Light on facts, heavy on at least one blatant lie and a lot of exaggeration, and one very convoluted and nonsensical theory. All right? Moin Rabbani's like, I'm going to respond to those. Now, Benny Morris interrupts the fuck out of him. But basically, Moin Rabbani says that charter is anti-Semitic. You're right about that. But it's not genocidal. Benny says it's implicitly genocidal. Not explicitly, but it's implicitly genocidal. Moin says, but also, that charter's been superseded by a new charter. Benny says it's not a charter. It's not called a charter. It's an explanation or a statement. Finkelstein says it's a political statement. It came out in 2018. Norm reminds Moeen. Benny says it doesn't step back from what the first charter said. Moeen is not kind of paying attention to that because he's going to talk about it. He says, if we look at the current version of the charter, Benny's like, stop calling it a charter. It's not a charter. It's functionally the same thing. It's just this big political statement with your positions and your the general point of view. It makes a clear distinction between Jews and Zionists in 2018. Yeah, we did read that. It's absolutely true. They say they have no problem with the religion of Judaism. Their only beef is with Israel and Zionists. Now, you can choose to dismiss it. Benny Morris says, yeah, I will dismiss it. Moyne says, fine. Secondly, I'm unfamiliar with fighters who consult these kinds of documents before they go on. And Benny breaks in immediately. They're brought up on this in their education system. In the kindergarten, they're told, kill the Jews. They practice with make-believe guns and uniforms when they're 5 years old in the kindergartens of Hamas. Wow. Really cool story, Benny. Moeen also pokes fun at him for this. He goes, at the instruction of the Commissioner General of UNRWA, right? Benny's like, I didn't say that. Yeah, you dickhead. He's taking the piss, Benny, as they say. Benny, you're getting the piss taken from you. Are you going to stand by and let someone take that piss from you? Or are you going to get back in the game? I didn't say that. I said the Hamas has kindergartens and summer camps in which they train to kill the Jews, children aged 5 and 6. Okay, yeah. You did say that. Secondly, you keep saying Jews, to which I would respond, they use the word Jews. Stop interrupting, Benny. To which I'd respond that Hamas does not have a record of deliberately targeting Jews who are not Israeli. In fact, it also doesn't have a record of deliberately targeting either Jews or Israelis outside of Israel and Palestine. And then Benny's like, well, let's change the subject to something else that I can bitch about. Unlike the Hezbollah, which has started targeting Jews outside of Palestine. Benny, did you just call it Palestine? Way to go. Moeen reminds him that we're talking about October 7th. If you want to talk about that other thing, let's get to that separately. So again, genocidal. My first response would be talk about potentially genocidal actions against Israelis rather than against Jews for the reason I mentioned. And again, I find this constant conflation of Jews, Israel, and Zionism to be disturbing. Yeah. Secondly, I think there are quite a few indications in this factual record that raise serious questions about accusations of the genocidal intent and genocidal practice of what happened on October 7th. And my final point would be, I don't think I should take your word for it. You shouldn't take mine. Yeah. They need independent investigation. Benny Moore says, of what? Of what? Of all that bullshit you said. There's no evidence for it. No evidence for all that bullshit you said. That's why you can't make a fucking coherent argument. And you're like, what should they investigate? Huh? What should they even investigate? Moyne goes on about the International Court of Justice not doing its job. Now, this debate happened, I think, maybe just a month before the ICJ actually released like warrants for the arrest of Netanyahu and what's his ass? The other guy who got the military head that got fired. Benny says there's certain things you don't even have to investigate. You know how many civilians died. Can you imagine like a police detective show? He's like, 3 civilians died. Case closed. Dun dun. Wow, this show is great. It sets it up. It's like, oh, how many people died? And then the main detective goes in there and he's like, whoa, 1, 2, 3. And then the big twist is that he counted 3, but it was actually one. It was actually only 2, but one of the bodies was split in half. So he only saw half here and half there, and he counted them as 2 different people. All you have to know is the number of people who died, and then there's no more questions. Case closed. We know how many citizens died. We will blame all of them on Hamas for obvious reasons, because we don't want to talk about who actually might have killed them. Benny. Come on, Benny. We're not that fucking stupid. Are you that fucking stupid? You might be that fucking stupid. You might be that stupid as to think that that stupid thing you said is going to be something that would fool people. Because you think everyone's stupider than you. I bet that's what it is. You get that college professor syndrome or whatever of just like, I'm the smartest guy in the world. I literally know everything. You get that because you spend a lot of, as teachers do often, they spend a lot of time being the smartest, most knowledgeable authority in the room all the time. And you sort of train yourself to be like, I fucking know everything. Oh my God. And everyone else is so dumb, and I could literally tell them anything and they'll fucking believe it. Oh my God. Oh my God. So it's like, yeah. Sometimes you just say dumb stuff like, there's certain things you don't even have to investigate. You know how many civilians died. You already know how many civilians died. What else would you have to investigate? Who killed them? No. There's no need to investigate who killed them. It was Hamas. Oh, really? Because we're just looking at some of this evidence here. No. You don't have to look at that because it was Hamas that did it. So you don't even have to check. You don't have to look at that. Don't waste your time. It takes so much time to look at evidence. Wouldn't you rather just believe me? So at this point, now we're getting into where Benny's going to start attacking Moeen and Norm. So at this point, he's just basically trying to make an argument of Hamas bad, right? He's just like, Hamas super, super bad. They bad. Moeen Rabbani comes in and he gives some counter arguments. He's like, they not so bad. And Benny interrupts him. Oh, yes, they bad. They bad. And Hezbollah bad too. And Jews equal Zionists, and Zionists equals Israel, and Israel equals Jews. And Benny and Moyne says, no. Zionists and Jews are different. It's a different thing. Benny's like, whatever, fuck off. I will never acknowledge that, even that you criticize me for not acknowledging this. Well, someone needs to actually investigate what happened. Benny said, no, you don't have to investigate anything. And then he goes, there are allegations of rape. I don't know how persuaded you are of those. They did find bodies without heads. Moeen, there were no beheadings of infants. Benny, there were some beheadings, apparently. Norm, the Israelis didn't even claim that in the documents they submitted before the ICJ. Go read what your government submitted. It never mentioned beheadings. Well, as far as I know, there were some people who were beheaded. Again, that's his argument. He can't point to any source or any picture or a name or anything. It's as far as I know. And I mean, I'm imagining kitty cat. The kitty cat's being crazy over there. Imagining like it's someone who's on Benny Morris's side, a Zionist, who's watching this debate, and when Benny says, "As far as I know," that I think a Zionist person, that's all they would need to hear. For them, they would be convinced by that. Because they would say, I don't trust these other guys. I don't like this Norm guy or this Moeen guy. I don't trust him, right? So they wouldn't be really listening very hard to these guys, and they would be listening to Benny say, well, as far as I know, there were some people who were beheaded. Norm Finkelstein, what was he blabbing about? He was jabbering, just flapping his gums, something about documents submitted before a whatever. And then Benny just saying, well, as far as I know, there were some people who were beheaded. Benny, then why didn't they put it in this document they submitted before the International Court of Justice, where they're defending themselves against accusations of genocide? You don't think if they had an actual beheaded person, they wouldn't put that in the fucking document? You dumb fuck. You have nothing to say. You can't say shit. And the thing you just said means nothing if you just listen to what Norm just said. Norm just cooked your ass, Benny. You're cooked. Benny, I've got the meat thermometer, and it's reading 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Okay? It's Fahrenheit. That means you're cooked. You've got an internal temperature. Is it Fahrenheit? No, that would be Celsius, right? Fahrenheit's fine. I keep forgetting what the 160 is. But 160 degrees, whatever it is, you're now safe to eat because you've been irradiated of all bacteria. Because Norm Finkelstein just cooked your ass. So Benny Morris is now on the attack. All right? Here's the first attack. You deny that there were rapes. Do you know that they killed 800 or 900 civilians? That's right. 900. And then Norm's like, I don't deny that. That's correct. Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad you're considering something. Nice recovery, Benny. You were trying to get a gotcha. You were just really hoping that Norm would say, no civilians died on October 7th. And then they could be like, what? Oh my God. Look how fucking crazy you are. You just lost this whole debate. Pack it up, boys. Norm Finkelstein just said the most ridiculously untrue thing ever. Oh, we got him. We got his ass. We got his ass. That's what Benny Moore is thinking. But instead, Norm's like, yeah, that's right. I agree with that. I don't deny that. Oh. Oh, okay. Well, good, actually. Good. That's good to me that you, because I was otherwise I was gonna call you a fucking monster. You would be an untrustworthy, uncritical monster if you said that. Okay, fine, great. And then Steve Bonnell's like, let me try something. To be clear, you haven't. I don't remember the talk show, but you seem to imply that there was a lot of crossfire and that it might have been the IDF that killed a lot of... Now, actually, I think we can actually find this clip that he's referring to. I think we can find this clip. So you got any big plans for the weekend? Ooh, that sounds like fun. Oh, that sounds fun. That sounds like a good time. Oh, fun. I hope you have fun with that. Hope you have fun with that one. That's a good one. Okay. Here we go. It's compiled in this clip here.
Go ahead. Hi. During your speech, certain people...
Journalists, disabled people, they describe double amputees 300 meters from the perimeter fence that Israel shot. When they didn't kill them, they targeted them from the kneecap down. In your book, but that's not what Amnesty International said. That's not what Human Rights Watch said. I don't remember what they said. I do. Benny Morris now says, we don't know whether Israel has nuclear weapons. Well, that's a very odd thing for him to say, because Benny Morris has been explicitly blackmailing the West since 2008, saying, if you don't, meaning the United States, if the U.S. doesn't join in an attack on Iran, we, meaning Israel, have evidence shows now atrocities occurred. Who is this for? Palestinians.
Okay, it's the second clip here. So Stephen Bonnell, here's how he characterizes it. To be clear, you haven't, meaning haven't said from day one that 800 to 900 civilians were killed. To be clear, you didn't. You haven't said that. You're a liar, Norm. I don't remember the talk show, but you seemed to imply that there was a lot of crossfire. Oh my God. How... Oh my God, he seemed to imply that there was crossfire? What a monster. Of course there wasn't crossfire. Of course there was no crossfire, because you had Hamas over here shooting, and then you had IDF over here shooting. How is there ever going to be crossfire? I mean, the only place there would be crossfire would be like, I don't know, like if you were somehow in between Hamas and IDF, like, say, for example, a hostage or something. But only in that rare circumstance would there be crossfire that might have killed Israelis. It's so crazy that that Norm would imply that that happened. And that might have been the IDF that killed people? I don't see how that's possible. How could the IDF have killed people in Crossfire? Because they were on this side shooting toward Hamas, and Hamas had hostages, and then they were shooting back. So, like, there's no way the IDF would miss their target ever, or hit the target that they want to. So Stephen's attack is the most noodly armed little me. Like, if we had to be like, well, Stephen, you're actually correct. I did say on an unknown talk show that, or I did seem to imply that there was a lot of crossfire. So let's see what he actually said.
Not for what's inside.
Would you condemn Hamas for what they did?
My view is as follows. Number one, as far as the evidence shows now, atrocities occurred on October 7th. The magnitude of the atrocities and the types of atrocities, for example, were children beheaded, were women raped. That remains, so far as I can tell from the evidence, an open question. However, that there were atrocities that occurred, my answer is yes. That's a factual question. And then there is the legal question. As a matter of law, it seems unquestionable that the people who perpetrated these atrocities would be prosecuted and convicted in a court of law. However, I would say on the legal question, I should think that there would be some mercy shown because those who carried out the atrocities were concentration camp inmates. Number three, which I think is the one that concerns you the most, is the moral question. My basic precept is that there, but for the grace of God, go I. That is to say, I'm very reluctant to condemn people who are in a position or in a condition such that were I in that position or condition, I'm not sure what I would do. Now, the 1,500 young men who burst the gates of Gaza, they were born into a concentration camp. They lived for 2 decades in a concentration camp. They had no past, they had no present, they had no future, they had no jobs. Half of them, according to humanitarian organizations, suffered from what's called severe food insecurity. And then on top of that, as I'm sure you know, Pierce, because you keep up with the news, periodically Israel goes into Gaza and it mows the lawn. And you know what mows the lawn means. It means a high-tech massacre in Gaza. In 2008-9, Operation Cast Lead. 2012, Operation Pillar of Defense. 2014, Operation Protective Edge. And in each of these high-tech massacres visited on the people of Gaza, in some cases hundreds, in some cases thousands of Palestinians are killed. You ask me why I won't condemn them. Because those young men were born into a concentration camp. They were born into among the most dense populated places on God's earth. Half of the population of Gaza is children. 70% are refugees who were expelled from Israel in 1948 and their descendants. 70% of Gaza's youth have no jobs, no future, no nothing.
Okay,
And the people
Professor
of
Finkelstein.
Gaza have the right to hate the people who destroy their lives.
Drop the mic moment right there. So I don't know if that's the exact, because Stephen doesn't remember the talk show, so he can't even properly cite his sources. Also, seem to imply, that's like twice removed. You said it, you implied it, you seemed to imply it. So you could really pull a seeming implication probably out of your ass from anything, right? Like through this message, it implies that Stephen didn't come prepared with this clip and this quote with a date and a citation in order for anyone to check up on it. That seems to imply a lack of good faith preparation. So Norm's like, yeah, I never denied any of these blatantly true facts. Now, before Benny Morris said 8 to 900, now he's landed on a specific number, 850. Way to go, Benny. Way to go, Blue Benny. You got it. You got a specific number. You didn't really care before. You were like, some number, some round number, some round number. But as soon as Norm doesn't quite say it, as soon as Norm says it, he says 800 of them were civilians. Benny Morris has to pipe in 850. 850, fine. So he reiterates that we know how many were killed, but we cannot be clear as to who killed them. Stephen then says, that's a lot of tricky language. Ooh, or tricky language. We love tricky language. Tricky language. Norm reiterates, there's nothing tricky, you dumb fuck. It's called attaching value to words and not talking like a dipshit motor mouth piece of fuck. You're like a piece of a fuck. He's very careful about qualifying because that's what language is about. Stephen, that's great. Let me ask you a clarifying question. So his clarifying... So, again, they're just on the attack, but they don't know what they're attacking. They're going after... They're not going after any specific points. They're going after Norm himself. They're trying to impeach Norm by saying, like, but you didn't say that before. Before you said... You just said that you always said this from day one, but guess what? You know you didn't. And then, like, now his question... His clarifying question is, do you firmly believe that the majority of the 850 civilians were killed by Hamas? Norman, because Stephen didn't listen to his, or like, didn't even acknowledge. Because this question, if you were to pay attention to what Norm said, he said, I don't know. You know, if Stephen were listening, he would say, okay, so you don't know, but what's your guess? Do you think more were killed by Hamas or by the IDF? Norm is then going to respond, it doesn't matter, even if it were half. And he's probably saying, like, if the IDF killed, or if Hamas killed all of them, or half of them, or none of them, then it doesn't matter, because he says atrocities were committed, right? I think it's Norm's position that any of those resistance fighters on the Palestinian side, they may have been Hamas, they may have been from other groups. He's saying if any of them individually can be known to have killed a civilian, you know, they could be subject to a court-martialing and have to stand trial for murder, just like any other soldier in any other army. I think that's fair. I think that's fair. And Norm is basically saying, even if it were half, 400 is a huge number by any reckoning, right? He's saying, yes, I admit that Hamas probably, most likely, committed atrocities. And he says, even if it were half of that number, right? He's saying, like, I'm not gonna try to argue that even that they did a small amount. I'm not trying to minimize the role. Even if I thought they did half of it, or even if they only did half of what they were suspected of doing, it's still a large number by any reckoning. This is when Benny and Steve can now kind of like flip the argument because they can pretend that Norm just said something really nuts. They're like, wait, what? Huh? 400? What? Why 400? Whoever thought of that number? Whoever thought of the number 400? What do you mean, who thought of it? He just said half. Like, even if it were half of 800 is 400. That's where he got 400 from. He's just saying, like, whatever, that's the number. I'm just saying, if it was half of that, if it was a fraction of that, it doesn't matter. First of all, I don't know. Second of all, it doesn't matter. Stephen's still on this attack of Norm. He's like, you're saying this from day one. You believe this particular thing, and you clearly don't. You don't believe this thing. And then now he's saying, you said people died. That's not controversial. That's not controversial. Why is it supposed to be controversial? He's stating that because that's literally what, Stephen, that is exactly what Benny Morris was wagging his finger at Norman saying, you don't believe that 800 to 900 civilians died that day. And Norm's like, yeah, I do. I've always said that. Now, Stephen's trying to attack him. No, you didn't always say that. You clearly don't believe that. And then Stephen admits, you said people died. That's not controversial. That's exactly what he's being accused of denying. He's being accused of denying that people died. Among other things. He's also being accused of, I guess, saying that Hamas didn't do any of it. They want him to say that. They want him to say Hamas didn't kill anybody. It was all the IDF. So then he's like, you said people died. That's not controversial. Poor Moeen. Wait, hold on. If I may, I really wish he would have just started talking. It would have been nice to hear him. Mr. Bonell, I attach value to words. Yes, you've said that. If you value them, stop repeating them so much. You dumb little disrespectful little piece of shit, Stephen. He's such a fucking dickhead. Like, I mean, and that's one of the lighter criticisms of him. I mean, the kid is a fucking demon. He's an actual, like, sexual criminal, like, cult leader level of evil, right? But then even just down on on a personal basis, if I was just like in line at a concession stand behind this guy, he's a fucking rude piece of shit. You rude fucking piece of shit. Slow down your speech and attempt to listen. When I was explicitly asked by Piers Morgan, I said there can be no question that Hamas committed atrocities. And then Steve's like, committed atrocities. I've heard this, yeah. Like, his way of, like, you never said they committed, you never said anyone died. I've always said that people died. Oh, you said people died. That's not controversial. Of course it's not controversial. Because you tried to get me to say the opposite, and you were going to use that against me. Right? He's such an idiot. It's like, try to get him to deny the Holocaust. Right? They're going to do... That's his goal in a fucking debate. It's not to win over an argument, not to present an argument, not to make a case. It's like, can we trick the opponent into, like, saying, like, basically siding with white supremacists? Can we trick our opponent into saying something that I can spin as, well, you're basically a genocidal terrorist freak. You're basically like a flat earther. If you want me to pin it down a number, I can't do that. Again, sweet Norm, just trying to reiterate, trying to rephrase and say it in a way that makes sense. Norm, every single way you've said it has made perfect sense to anyone who's listening, who understands the English language. You've said that you know people died, but you don't know who killed all of them. And as Benny pointed, or Moin Rabbani pointed out, there has not been an independent investigation of this. So we just have the words of, well, both sides, but mostly you're just getting the Israeli side. Steven says, I didn't ask you to pin down a number. Steven, you literally asked him to pin down a number. You said, what percentage of that 850 people? You said, do you firmly believe that the majority? Right? You're asking him to pin down a number, you dick. I didn't ask you to pin down a number. No, my question is, I'll ask a very precise. Mr. Bernal, I cannot speak to you because you're not what? I cannot speak to you because you are not. What did you say? What did you say he's not? Let's go to 1839.
Ask you to pin down a number. You can listen to what I'm saying. No, my question is, I'll ask a very precise question.
Sorry, excuse me.
It's a very easy question. I'll ask a very precise question.
Sorry, excuse me.
It's a very easy question.
That's really tough because everyone's talking at the same time.
I'll ask a very precise question.
Sorry, excuse me.
It's a very easy
If I
question.
understood your question correctly.
My question is, do you think the majority of the people that were killed on October 7th, the civilians, were killed by Hamas?
Yes.
Yeah, we know what your question was, you dickhead. You're asking it in such a frantic way. And what the fuck is this supposed to... What are you getting at? You're supposed to be here debating and making an argument. And when you ask your opponent to answer a question, why are you asking, do you believe or do you think this kind of questions? The whole purpose of like, if we're trying to have this war of ideas, you might ask a question about your opponent's position, but then you'll say something and you'll turn that answer around into some kind of a positive argument for your side. Or you'll, try to tear down that argument. So, like, what's your evidence for the percentage breakdown of who got killed and by whom, Stephen? That's what we're waiting for. All you're doing is frantically asking the same stupid question and then talking over the answer. Can we please have a voice of reason? Yes. Yes, say the gods of debate. We give you Moin Rabbani. Everyone shut the fuck up and let me explain why that's a difficult question to answer. The total number of civilians killed, 800, 850. We know that Hamas is responsible probably for a majority of those killings. There you go. You just answered his fucking question, Stephen. Now you can like calm down. We also know that there were killings by the Islamic Jihad. We also know that... No, let me interrupt you again. Benny Morris has to fucking interrupt. No, we're bunching together the Islamic Jihad and Hamas. That's splitting hairs. Just shut the fuck up, Benny. There's no reason to insert that point in the middle of him talking. You take a beautiful thing like Moin Rabbani trying to clear out the bullshit, and then you get Benny Morris just flopping bullshit right on the carpet that, Moin Rabbani's got like one of those fucking awesome steam cleaners, and he's just carving like a nice clean streak through the bullshit carpet. And it's this beautiful, sparkling, clean carpet in the wake of this giant industrial steam cleaner. And then here comes Benny Morris with shit all over his shoes, just tromping along, walking zigzags across it. Oh, I'm so pissed at Benny. Benny, you fuck. Benny, if you want to just... What do you mean we're bunching together? What do you mean we're bunching together? What do you mean? You were asked... You and Steven, collectively, I guess, are delivering a question from your side is saying, here's our question, and you have to answer it. And then he's like, well, okay, some were killed by these guys, some were killed by these other guys. And then, no. Benny says, no, we're bunching together. What do you mean we're bunching together? Benny, you should say, well, what about... Benny should say, okay, just any Palestinian... Just consider all Palestinians. You can combine them together and think of them as one. If we do that, who do you think did the majority of the killing? Well, he already kind of answered your question because he only mentioned that one of those several resistance groups probably is responsible for the majority of the killings, right? So we've just answered your question. And then Benny's like, no, that's splitting hairs now. What do you mean splitting hairs? He didn't even make an argument. He's just saying, you asked a fucking question. Here's the fucking answer. And then they just squirm around like, no, but you didn't sound terrible from that answer that you gave. So Stephen has to get up and go, I'm speaking in opposition to the conspiracy theory that people like... Do you prefer Norm or Professor Finkelstein? I don't know. How do you like to be addressed? I love this part. Norm just completely ignores that question. Moin Rabbani says, well, it's not a conspiracy theory there because it's... And then Stephen just... Okay. Well, the conspiracy theory is the idea that the IDF killed the majority of them. Moin Rabbani, it's not a conspiracy theory. There's also a theory that, as Norm pointed out on the show that he was on, that he thought that it was very strange, given how reputable Israeli services are when it comes to sending ambulances, retrieving bodies. He thought it was very strange that the number was continually being adjusted. Again, Stephen, just change the subject, because you obviously have to. You have to... change because there's nothing else for you to say, right? So now he thought so he's like, there's a conspiracy theory and I think that you guys believe it. In fact, I think that Norm secretly believes this conspiracy theory and then he tried to push it. He seemed to imply that he's pushing it. Great line of attack in this debate. Stephen's like, oh, I think you guys are believe a conspiracy theory. And they're like, no. But now that you point out some of the reasons that we thought that Israel wasn't being honest, well, yeah, some of those things were things I said. Yeah, I did find it strange. And Moeen's like, and do you know why? Do you know why the number went down? The number went down because the Israeli authorities were in possession of 200 corpses that were burned to a crisp that they had assumed were Israelis who had been killed on October 7th. They later determined that those were in fact Palestinian fighters. Now, how does a Palestinian fighter get burned to a crisp? So it was the hostages and the Palestinians together, all burned, and they couldn't even tell them apart. Benny Morris is saying, no, you're mixing two things. Some of the bodies they weren't able to identify, and eventually they ruled that some of them were actually Arab marauders rather than Israeli victims. A few of them also, the Jews were burnt to a crisp, but it took them time to work this out. $1,400 dead and eventually reduced it to 1,200 dead Israelis. What do you mean, no? I don't understand, Benny, how you're like, no, you're mixing two things. What are the two things he's mixing? Were there multiple cases of bodies being found and being attributed to Israeli deaths? And then so I mean, Benny is saying exactly what Stephen accused Norm of doing. You said that you thought it was strange that the number was being adjusted. And then Benny's like, no. The number actually was being adjusted. Moeen, and the reason that a proportion of Israeli civilians killed on October 7th, I don't believe it was the majority. We don't know how many. Some were killed in crossfire. Some were killed by Israeli shell fire, helicopter fire, and so on. The majority were killed by Palestinians. Of that majority, we don't know. Again, I understood your question is referring specifically to Hamas, which is why I tried to answer it that way. But if you mean generically Palestinians, yes. If you mean specifically Hamas, we don't have a clear breakdown of how many were. No, I don't mean specifically Hamas. Who fucking cares what you mean? What is your fucking point, Stephen? What is your fucking point? Now this is when he's like, I think when you use the word some, that's doing a lot of heavy lifting. Why? Because Stephen is still trying to say that Moeen and Norm are crazy conspiracy theorists with extreme views, but they're just sort of hiding it. So he's like, you said some were killed by Israeli shell fire, but you're saying some, but you actually mean a great majority. No, he clearly didn't. He says, I don't believe it was a majority, but there was some. So according to you, Stephen Bozell, Mr. Morelli, as you said the very next time, that's fine, but some can mean anywhere from 1% to 49%. Yeah, you bitch. What's your fucking point? You're not arguing anything. So finally, Lex Friedman butts in and says these numbers are so very interesting and almost legally they are important. Almost. Such interesting numbers. Yeah, Lex, it's really interesting, isn't it? It's really interesting how they had how they said numbers. It was really interesting how they were just saying all these numbers, man. That was the interesting thing to me, was the numbers. Remember when they were like 800, 850, 1400, 1200, 1%, 49%? That was so interesting. I just love hearing all those interesting numbers. Lex is like, just couldn't be more of like the typical fucking meat-headed dumb fuck who just honestly believes he's a smart guy. And he's like, oh yes, so the numbers and the details, ooh, so interesting. And very important too. It's always important to remember numbers such as 1200 and 1400. All very interesting numbers. God damn, how interesting they are.
Yes.
Or are we subscribing to the idea that the IDF killed hundreds, 400 or 500
No,
in the
but
crossfire?
let me explain why that's a difficult question to answer. The total number of civilians killed was 800, 850.
Mhm.
We know that Hamas is responsible, probably for the majority of those killings. We also know that there were killings by Islamic Jihad. We also know.
Well, we're bunching together the Islamic Jihad and the Hamas. That's
Well, but
splitting
his
hairs
question
now.
was
No, but
specifically
he means
about.
No, it's
the
clear.
raiders. He means the raiders.
I'm speaking in opposition to the conspiracy theory that people like. Do you prefer Norm or Professor Finkelstein, or what do you? I don't know what how do you prefer?
Well,
to be
it's not a
addressed?
conspiracy theory.
Well,
Because
the conspiracy theory is the idea that the IDF killed the majority of them.
It's not a conspiracy theory.
And then there's
the
also a theory that, as Norm pointed out on the show that he was on, that he thought that it was very strange that, given how reputable Israeli services are when it comes to sending ambulances, retrieving bodies, he thought it was very strange that that number was continually being adjusted.
And do you know
so
why?
when you say that in combination with, well, I'm not sure how many were
Well,
killed.
do
by
you know
Hamas
why
versus
the number?
IDF?
Do you know why the number went down? The number went down because the Israeli authorities were in possession of 200 corpses that were burned to a crisp, that they assumed were Israelis who had been killed on October 7th. They later determined that these were in fact Palestinian fighters. Now, how does a Palestinian fighter get burned to a crisp?
No, you're mixing two things.
I don't
Some
think
of the
that's the question.
bodies they weren't able to identify, and eventually they ruled that some of them were actually Arab marauders rather than Israeli victims. A few of them also, of the Jews, were burnt to a crisp. And it took them time to work this out. And they came out initially with a slightly higher figure, 1,400 dead, and eventually reduced it to 1,200
and the
dead
reason
Israelis.
And the reason is that a proportion of Israeli civilians killed on October 7th, I don't believe it was a majority. We don't know how many. Some were killed in crossfire. Some were killed by Israeli shell fire, helicopter fire, and so on. And the majority were killed by Palestinians. And of that majority, we don't know. I mean, again, I understood your question as referring specifically to Hamas, which is why I tried to answer it that way. But if you meant generically Palestinians, yes. If you mean specifically Hamas, we don't have a clear breakdown of how many.
No, I don't mean
were
specifically Hamas,
Okay.
but I just think when you use the word some, that's doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Who used some?
That's fine, but some can mean anywhere from 1% to 49%.
But we don't know.
Some.
So the numbers here and the details are interesting and important almost from a legal perspective. But if we zoom out, the moral perspective, are Palestinians from Gaza justified in violent resistance?
Well, Palestinians have the right to resistance. That right includes the right to armed resistance. At the same time, armed resistance is subject to the laws of war. And there are very clear regulations that separate legitimate acts of armed resistance from acts of armed resistance that are not legitimate. And
the attacks of October 7th, where did they land for you?
There's been almost exclusive focus on the attacks on civilian population centers and the killings of civilians on October 7th. What is much less discussed, to the point of amnesia, is that there were very extensive attacks on Israeli military and intelligence facilities on October 7th. I would make a very clear distinction between those two. And secondly, I'm not sure that I would characterize the efforts by Palestinians on October 7th to seize Israeli territory and Israeli population centers as in and of themselves illegitimate.
You mean attacking Israeli civilians is
No,
legitimate?
no, that's not what I
didn't
said.
understand what you said.
I think what you had on October 7th was an effort by Hamas to seize Israeli territory and population
And
centers.
kill civilians.
That's not what I said. What I said is I think I would not describe the effort to seize Israeli territory as in and of itself illegitimate, as a separate issue from the killing of Israeli civilians, where in those cases where they had been deliberately targeted, that's very clearly illegitimate.
Whole families were slaughtered in kibbutzim.
But I'm making
I think-
But
Wait,
many of
I
them
think-
left-wingers,
I think-
incidentally, who helped Palestinians go to.
Shut the fuck up, Annie. And you too, Stephen. Stephen shut all the way up, all the way out, all the way off. So this is Benny Morris being a dumb fuck, just being an obstinate little bitch. I mean, what can you say to someone who just literally won't listen to words? What do you say to someone who just is like, I mean, he's being bad faith. I know he's not so dumb that he thinks that's what he said. Benny Morris is trying to go, aha. Like, he's just trying to, like, let me flip around whatever he said and put, again, all they're doing, their whole game is let's try to put abhorrent words in their mouths. Let's try to get them to say abhorrent things that we can go, oh my God, so you believe that, huh? Wow. Oh, wow. I can't believe you fucking believe that. You guys are nuts. We just won the debate. That's their tactic here. And it's a very frustrating tactic as someone who cares about the arguments and wants to separate the argument from who makes the argument, right? At the end of the day, as much as I hate these fucking guys, and I hate them with all my heart, if they make an argument that is a valid argument, that's going to be considered. Now, fortunately for me, I don't have to deal with that cognitive dissonance at all, because they can't even they can't do anything, right? Maybe we can try to do a sweeping overview of like the first 2 hours in just analyzing what are the general overall strategies being lobbed. Because for the first 20 minutes, it's basically these two fucking freaks just trying to needle and poke and prod at Norm and Rabbani to try to get them to say conspiracy stuff, right? Steven's whole game has been like, you guys are conspiracy theorists, aren't you? I bet you believe all this crazy conspiracy shit, right? Imagine if I came to debate you on, I don't know, some kind of science topic, like theory of evolution, and I come at a creationist, and I go, well, do you even believe that the earth is round? You probably, no, I've always said the earth is round. To be clear, you haven't always said the earth is round. I watched you on a previous debate, and you said that you seem to imply that NASA is lying, told lies about the landing on the moon. So you do believe the earth is round? Oh, fine. Okay, well, that's good then. That's good that you believe that. Because all I'm trying to say is, like, there's this conspiracy theory that the earth is flat and it's not round, and I just look, tell me this. Do you firmly believe that NASA tells the truth about the shape of the earth? All right. It's frustrating, it's weird. All right. So Benny Morris just pretends he can't understand words. No, that's not what I said. I didn't understand what you said. So then Moin Rabbani ever so patiently reiterates it. And then Benny Morris has to jump in again and kill civilians. See, this is why you fucking know that you're not being honest, that you didn't understand what he said. You didn't understand because it didn't sound bad enough. You're asking them for their positions. Tell me what you think. and they tell you what you think, and then you go, well, you mean attacking Israeli civilians is legitimate? I didn't say that. I don't understand what you said. What I said was that the efforts by Hamas, it kills civilians. Just butt in there. Just try to throw that in there. It's so blatantly fucking obvious how Benny is just dishonestly trying to lob arguments into the mouths of these other people, right? We haven't seen that happen at all from Moeen or Norm. Focusing now. Now, to be fair, Norm did reference a lot of stuff that Benny Morris had written, but said, hey, here's what you wrote. You don't have to necessarily agree with it today, but this is up for discussion because you wrote it. You can go back on it. You can denounce it. But you fucking wrote this, and you're a literal source of information. Okay? So what Moeen is clearly saying is that there was a multitude of actions and things happening on October 7th. There were killings of civilians, but there was also military operations being carried out where they were taking over facilities and seizing land. Right? And if you're going to say this is a military that is subject to international military rules, it is not illegitimate to seize territory and population centers. That in and of itself, in and of themselves, per se, right, is not illegitimate. He didn't say attacking Israeli civilians. He said territory and population centers can be seized. Right? If there was killings of innocent civilians, that's separate, that's different from the operation to seize territory. Right? These are illegitimate. The killings of civilians, that's illegitimate. They would be subject to trials for war crimes, right? But just the very act of them trying to seize territory, taking over military, shooting and killing IDF soldiers who are firing back at them. These are all legitimate actions by a military representing a people. So Benny Morris has to misunderstand it, has to try to throw shit around. Then he interrupts him, literally just trolling him. Just trolling him like a fucking 5-year-old. So he reiterates again, it is illegitimate to kill civilians. But seizing territory is not illegitimate. Sorry for the double negative. Seizing territory is legitimate in terms of fighting forces. Palestinians have every right to seize any land, especially the land just outside of Gaza. That is absolutely legitimate. Whole families were slaughtered in kibbutzim. Let's pull up a little mappy-doo. Little mappy-doo. I want to see where this place is at. All right, kibbutzim. Where is I'm imagining it's probably in the north or the south. Kisufim? Is that it? According to the transcript, it's Kibbutzim. This is Kisufim. I don't know. Is there... This is Egypt. I don't know if there's any settlements outside of in Egypt. Part of Rafah is Egypt. What does he say again? Whole families were slaughtered in kibbutzim. Many of them left-wingers. Oh, the left-wingers.
Many of them left-wingers, incidentally. Families were slaughtered in kibbutzim.
But I'm making... deliberately targeted. That's very clearly illegitimate.
Whole families were slaughtered in kibbutzim.
But I'm making...
Whole families were slaughtered in kibbutzim. Unrelated. Just not not good arguments. Many of them left-wingers, incidentally, who helped Palestinians go to hospitals in Israel and so on, even drove Palestinian cancer patients to hospitals in Israel, in Israeli territory. Kibbutzim. Let me just see if it comes up. Kibbutzim. There's so many places called kibbutz something. Does kibbutz just mean like town or something? Kibbutzim? Kibbutzim are communal settlements in Israel characterized by collective living, sharing of resources. Kibbutz is an intentional community in Israel. Okay, so he's not talking about a specific place. He's just saying in these kibbutzim, whole families were slaughtered. Kibbutzim. Bum, bum, bum. There appears to be a whole lot of information about these things. Interesting stuff. So the kibbutzim, many of them left-wingers, incidentally, who helped Palestinians. So what's the point of Benny saying this? Again, Moin Rabbani is in the context of answering Lex Friedman's question of the legitimacy of Palestinians to have violent resistance, of Gaza for violent resistance. And Moin says some of it's legitimate, some of it's not legitimate. And Benny Morris says, yeah, you know, part of what you said was illegitimate, was really, really bad. And it happened to people who were like really nice. They were left-wingers, incidentally. Yeah, they're incidentally left-wingers, for sure. Moin Rabbani tries to keep talking and clarifying. And then here we go again for the attack. Benny Morris with a, you don't seem to be very condemnatory of what the Hamas did. You don't seem to be very condemnatory of what the Hamas did. How condemnatory should he be, Benny? Because if you're listening to his words, which we know you're fucking not, even if you're hearing them, you're not taking in what they said. You're not trying to understand anything he's saying. You're trying to go, all that's in your head is make them look bad. They are the bad ones. They need to look like the bad ones, so they need to say bad things. And so when talking about Hamas, I'll just say that they weren't condemnatory enough. You don't seem to be very it doesn't seem like you care that civilians were killed. Well, he said 3 times that those were war crimes and that it's not legitimate to target civilians. That's what he said. Well, you don't seem to be condemnatory of what the Hamas did. Well, just like I said, I don't condemn them for fucking trying to take land and fight and protect themselves and fight back against military people. But I do condemn if they target civilians. Okay. Well, you don't seem to be very condemnatory. Well, I don't do selective condemnation. Benny Morris, again, with nothing to say, says, I'm not talking about selective. Yeah, you dumb fuck. He didn't say you were talking about selective. He's saying that if I was to just condemn Hamas for doing things that are supposed to be like legitimate, that are totally legitimate if Israel does it, then that would be selective condemnation. I don't do selective outrage. And Benny's losing his shit. Specific condemnation of this specific assault on civilians. I would, for example, condemn Israeli assaults on civilians, deliberate assaults on civilians. I would condemn them, but you're not doing that with the Hamas. Benny. Here's where he fucked up. Because again, all they care about in any moment is we just need the other side to look bad. So I have to look good in comparison. So in this moment, it's very, very, very good for my side if he's not going to strongly condemn deliberate assaults on civilians, well, then I do. I'm the good person who does that, and he doesn't. I condemn them. I would condemn them if they ever happened. But you're not doing that with the Hamas. Do you know what the issue is? What? I've been speaking in public now, I'd say, since the late 80s and interviewed and so on. I've never, on one occasion, ever been asked to condemn any Israeli act. When I've been in group discussion, those supporting the Israeli action or perspective, I've never encountered an example where these individuals are asked to condemn what Israel's doing. Then the demand and obligation of condemnation is exclusively applied, in my personal experience over decades, to Palestinians. This makes them lose their shit because Zionists, if you haven't heard, they're always the victim. They are always the victim. They have to be the victim in everything. So when Israel bombs a hospital, they are the victims. Okay? Do you know how traumatizing it is to have to bomb a hospital and know all the atrocious things you just did to people? And then on top of that, you got people accusing you of doing atrocious things. And that's very hurtful. It's very, very hurtful to attach labels like killer, hospital bomber, murderer, genocider. Those are all really hurtful sentences and hurtful things to say about a people. And yeah, it's just so sad. It's so sad when the poor Israelis, when they have to bomb children in hospitals and old people and sick people, you know, and how they have to starve people. It's so hard on the Israelis, you know. Can you imagine having to starve people? What does that do to your soul? That's gotta eat you up inside. I bet they feel guilty when they have dinner. So anyway, this is so fucking stupid that it's so fucking obvious. Like, just watch any TV or anything. You're never asked, do you condemn Israel? Do you condemn Israel? Okay, but do you condemn it should be the other way around. If someone's like, hi, I'd like to talk about my support for Israel, I'd be like, well, fine, I'll hear you out, but do you condemn Israel's actions against the Palestinians? And do you condemn the occupation of the West Bank? And if they don't condemn that, I won't have the conversation. I'll shut it down. I'll be like, this is wildly Islamophobic. Shut it down. So Benny Morris, ever the victim, Israel is condemned day and night on every television channel. Wow, Benny. Wow. Really? Really? Take me to this wonderful sounding world. Oh, imagine a world where you turn on every television channel and they're constantly condemning Israel. Oh, wow. What a strange and bizarre world that would be. I heard in that world, people wear shoes on their feet or on their hands. They wear shoes on their feet, they wear socks on their hands. And hamburgers eat people. Okay, now this is another thing I wanted to bring up is the whole thanks to Lex Friedman, we have now this whole idea that Norm Finkelstein is doing some sort of dirty trick anytime he brings up the word quote, anytime he wants to quote something. If he wants to quote something that Benny said, at this point, it's now acceptable to just roll your eyes and say, oh boy, here's Norm and his out of context quotes again. Here we go. What do you got this time, Norm? The idea of we're going to just dismiss anything that Norm says if he read it out of a book, right? That's a precedent set by our good moderator, Lexifer Friedman. Okay? Lexifer Friedman decides that books are kind of bad because they were all written in the past. And we're here in the present. So why would you talk about a book from the past if you could talk about just things from your own brain instead? That would be better. And so he repeatedly has admonished and discouraged Norm from referencing quotes on books. Books written by his interlocutor, by Benny Morris himself. And Benny Morris is such a wiggly little worm that he's like, that's right, you can't quote from my book. Otherwise, it's not fair. Why do you care about books? Why do you care about quotes? Forget the quotes. Forget about them. What do you mean? But Norm is not stupid, and he's not going to buy that shit. But Stephen Bonnell tries it. He tries to get on the, quotes are ridiculous. You and your quotes, you and your books, Norman Finkelstein. One of these days, Norm, you and your books. I'm imagining just like a 12-year-old Norm Finkelstein reading a big stack of books by candlelight, and like a housewife version of Steve Bonnell opens the bedroom door. Norman Finkelstein, you and your books. You get out right here now and go feed those pigs. And then 12-year-old Norm Finkelstein looks up at his mother, who is Stephen Bonnell, and he says, Mother, you are such a fantastic moron that it's terrifying. Get his ass, Norm. I'm going to quote what you just said. Now, he's not quoting, the reason he gets away with it is because he's not quoting him from a book. He's quoting what you just said. Remember when I said that Benny Morris just fucked up? Because that's right when Norm's, right at 2:24:09, that's right. Let's see if we can see it, because I can imagine it. Let's see if we can actually see it. Norm Finkelstein perks up a little bit at that sentence there hits Norm Finkelstein the same way it hit me, which is like, oh, you do you? Is that right, Benny? Oh, really, Benny Morris? Is that right? You condemn Israeli assaults on civilians, don't you? Interesting. Oh, that should be an interesting thing. I find that to be very interesting, Benny Morris. Watch Norm.
Many of them left-wingers, incidentally, who helped Palestinians go to hospitals in Israel and so on.
Again,
even drove Palestinian cancer patients to hospitals in Israeli.
I'm making a distinction here.
But you don't seem to be very condemnatory of what the Hamas did.
Well, I don't do selective condemnation.
I'm not talking about selective.
I don't do selective
specific
outrage.
Condemnation of this specific
assault
on civilians.
It is.
I would, for example, condemn Israeli assaults on civilians, deliberate assaults on civilians.
Yes,
I would condemn them, but you're not doing that with the Hamas.
You know what the issue is? I've been...
Unfortunately, the camera did not pan over to Norm in time to catch his reaction to that. But we can see the cogs turning in his brain, I think. I will try to enhance and zoom. I believe we've got some cogs turning and him thinking about how am I gonna address this?
Speaking in public now, I would say since the late 1980s, and interviewed and so on. I have never on one occasion ever been asked to condemn any Israeli act.
All right, let's readjust that.
When I've been in group discussions, those supporting the Israeli action or perspective, I have never encountered an example where these individuals are asked to condemn what Israel is doing. The demand and obligation of condemnation is exclusively applied, in my personal experience over decades, is exclusively applied to Palestinians.
No, this is
and
nonsense.
those. Well,
Israel is condemned day and night on every television channel, on every, and has been for the last decade.
I'm telling you about a personal experience lasting decades.
You said, quote.
Professor Morris, you said, quote. Uh-oh, Stephen Bonell. So, the implication is, just because I said something in the past doesn't mean you can fucking use it against me. Stephen? Yeah, of course. The thing that you just spent like 20 minutes doing, as soon as Norm's like, well, here's something you said, Benny. Uh-oh, oh no. Here's the quote machine again, trying to dredge up old shit from the past and try to cram it into his argument. I'm trying to quote what you just said. Benny, I shouldn't have said anything at all. Professor Morris, yeah, you shouldn't have said anything at all. Yes, Benny, that's the first fucking true thing you've said all day. All week. I mean, fuck, at the rate I'm going through this, that's the first smart thing he's said all month. Professor Morris? Yes. You just said I would condemn any time Israel deliberately attacks civilians. The problem, Professor Morris, is over and over and over again you claim in the face of overwhelming evidence that they didn't attack civilians. Not true. So, Benny, you see why you're an idiot? Is because now you're on the defense. And your only way to get out of this is to talk about atrocities committed by Israel. You have to not only... Why did you make that argument, dude? Why did you make that argument? Because now you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. So Norman Finkelstein basically has your ass as to being someone who denies that something happened even when faced with overwhelming evidence that it did happen. You are now the dumb fuck. You're the conspiracy theorist. You're the kooky guy who can't use facts and logic and doesn't actually accept something, right? You're the guy who gets sold a bridge in Florida, you know? You're the mark, Benny. You're the dumb fuck. And which means you have to claw your way out. You have to defend yourself. You have to stand up for yourself. How do you do that? Well, now you got to dredge up examples of atrocities committed by Israel. So in order for you to win this argument, you have to come clean and just fess up about some times that Israel did commit atrocities and you're willing to admit that they did. Huh. Wow. You're not building your case at all. You're completely on the defense. And any ground that you make up is just going to get turned back around at you. Cuz now whatever atrocity you're going to fess up and admit to, that's it. We can't deny that. Your opponents are going to use that as evidence of the atrocity doing machine that is the Israeli government, the Israeli machine. So Norman Finkelstein says over and over again, you claim that attacks didn't happen in the face of overwhelming evidence. Benny says that's not true. I've said Israel has attacked civilians Israel attacked civilians, and I've written extensively about it. In Kfar Qasim, they killed civilians, and I've written that. So you're just admitting you're selecting, as Stephen said. You cherry pick. How would that be cherry picking, dude? If Norm says you claim they didn't attack civilians over and over again, and you provide one argument saying, well, this time I didn't try to deny it. I didn't try to deny it. I said this one time. So you're cherry picking. I mean, Benny, it kind of sounds like you're cherry picking. Cuz you're trying to find a positive example of something. Here's an example where I did it. But the charge is that over and over you don't do it. This is like saying you have terrible attendance at school. You missed Monday. You were absent on Monday, you were absent on Thursday. The next week you were absent on Monday, you were absent on Wednesday and Thursday. And you were late on Friday. And you go, that's a lie. I was here on Tuesday. You liar. You lied. I was here on Tuesday. And I was here on Friday afternoon, too. You lied about me. You're cherry picking. I don't have bad attendance. I was literally here on Tuesday. You can't deny that. You're cherry picking. That's a good metaphor. Okay, you got to admit that's a good metaphor for what's happening here. Right? This is a Benny Morris style thing. Okay? Here's how it goes. It goes a little something like this. Let's open a new blankie. Oh no, can't you just be the same blankie? I want it to be in the same window. That's no good. Okay, got another document up here. So Stanley, you've had terrible attendance this month. Just last week, you were absent on Monday and Thursday, and you came in late on Friday. And then Stanley says, no, you're lying. I was here on Tuesday and Wednesday. And I wasn't absent on Friday. I was here in the afternoon. You lied. You fucking liar. So this we'll call Benny. Benny talking with his hypothetical student Stanley. I can't imagine being in Benny's class. Wait, no, sorry. Benny is the one who's making the dumb argument. Benny, you've had terrible attendance this month. So Stanley's the teacher. Benny, you've had terrible attendance this month. Just last week you were absent on Monday and Thursday, and you came in late on Friday. No, you're lying. I was here on Tuesday and Wednesday, and I wasn't absent on Friday. I was here in the afternoon. You lied, you fucking liar. How do you respond to something like this? Right? Possibilities are endless. Right? We could start with a We could start with I'm not lying. We could also say, don't call me a fucking liar, you little fucking piece of shit. That's a great opening. It's great escalation. I didn't say you were absent on Tuesday or Wednesday or Friday. I said you came in late on Friday and you missed Monday and Thursday. You could just repeat what you said. Right? But just scream the key words. You could also say, I never said you were. You missed 2.5 days. That's what I said. Okay, you're done. Go to the office. I mean, if it's a teacher, that's what my teachers would have said. If as soon as the teacher's done dealing with you, they say, go to the office. And they mean the main office of the school, right? But if someone tells you to go to the office, and at least for me, I have a momentary little panic, then that means I'm in trouble. Go to the office. So, how should Stanley respond to Benny's bullshit? Would you try? What would you do? What would you say? Hello, Akif. Sorry I didn't notice you before. But you're not, I don't have my chat up. Anyway. Hello. So, how should Stanley respond to Benny's bullshit? Would I say like something like, you're being a dickhead. You know what days you missed. Now be serious. You're not fooling anyone. Benny, you missed Monday and Thursday. You know it, and I know it. Stop trying to play games. Stop trying to play games. This could also be, I mean, this kind of just represents a general strategy. Obviously, the way it's written here, it's very obvious. But a lot of times when Steven does this, it's not so obvious. So we had the example where Norm said the Great March of Return was overwhelmingly peaceful. And then Pestiny says, no, you liar. The UN said it had aspects of violence. but the vast majority of protesters were peaceful. Like, this sentence would make sense if instead of "no, you liar," if you'd said something like, yeah. Yeah, the UN said it had aspects of violence to it, but the vast majority of protesters were peaceful. Now, he didn't say it like this. He didn't say it this clearly and obviously, right? But he did say, "No, you're lying." And he said it had aspects of violence to it. And then what he did is he started reading a paragraph from an article that he got from the UN website. It was not the UN report on the Great March of Return. It was just an article written 2 years after the fact about the lingering effects felt by the people who had been shot and injured and not killed, but left with critical, life-changing, life-ending, for all intents and purposes, injuries, leaving people unable to work when you're already living in Gaza. You know, it's... And then he reads that article, and the very first sentence, or that he reads that paragraph from the article, the very first thing he reads is that the vast majority of protesters were peaceful. But they tried to put holes in the fence. They tried to throw rocks at the fence. They threw Molotov cocktails at the fence. They lit tires on fire, which it doesn't explain how that's an aggressive act, but just that tires were on fire. Maybe just like, oh, that's really stinky to have a tire fire, I guess. Oh, and they had kites and balloons that had fire starters on them. Some kind of incendiary kite and balloon. And they talk about how it did damage to local flora and fauna, which, by the way, are all like probably like, I don't know if it's that specific area, but a lot of parts of Israel, they bring in all these fucking European and Western trees that are fucking invasive and not, they don't fit into the ecosystem in terms of like wildfire protection. So they're constantly like having these fucking crazy wildfires. And it's their own fucking fault for trying to like clear the desert or whatever. Like they think that they're like turning desert land into flourishing, beautiful, golf coursey looking fucking suburb motherfucking ugly ass shit. It's fucking disgusting. So how does Norm respond to this? What does he say? You're such a moron. You're such a moron. I'm terrified. You are such a... Oh, it's fantastic moron. Mr. Borelli, you are such can't find it. How about that? It's terrifying. See, I have a problem with remembering exact words. I always remember like, there we go. With all due respect, that's the part I missed. You're such a fantastic moron. It's terrifying. Okay, so here's the argument now. You are such a fantastic moron. It's terrifying. But what do you say to fucking bullshit like this? It can be hard because depending on what kind of bullshit you say, you can get further and further away from the point that Benny has terrible attendance. Bad school attendance. He missed 2.5 days this week. That's not good attendance, sir. You can't miss a whole day every week, let alone 2. And then you're late on Friday? A half day late? Come on, Benny. Don't blame this on your mom. Okay? She says you ride your own bike to work, to school. She says it's up to you to make sure that you get up, because she has to go to work before you leave for school. But she makes sure that your alarm went off before she leaves the house, and it's up to you to get your cereal and get your bike and make sure your homework's in your bag and get to school, okay? And your mom never sent any notes on Monday or Thursday, so I think you ditched. And you were gonna ditch on Friday, but then you almost got caught, so you decided to finally come in on the second half of the day, and play it off. Oh my goodness. So this is what we're dealing with. These are the kinds of arguments we're dealing with. Okay? Okay, folks. Get that through your skull. How should Stanley respond to Benny's bullshit? Interesting question, I do say so myself. I say so. All right. Go away. He is such a fantastic moron, and it is terrifying. Norm, you're absolutely right about that. It's fucking terrifying how much of a fantastic moron he is. It's scary. It's terrifying. It's disappointing. It's unsettling. It's unjust. It's not fair. It's not a fair state of affairs. What did you say? Okay, so here's where we get it to. Benny has to defend himself by admitting to Israeli atrocities. So on one hand, he has to minimize the number of atrocities committed by Israel, and balance that off with having a forceful enough counter argument to Norman Finkelstein's charge. Now, Benny's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place in terms of debate, rhetorically, right? He's saying Israel's already being condemned day and night, everywhere, every country, every human rights organization. Okay, I mean, that's not a strong argument that your side is on the correct side. If you're openly saying every neutral observer thinks we suck and thinks we're in the wrong. Ugh, so unfair. The only people that think I'm right are the fucking nation that, like, uses me. It's not fair. Oh, it's so not fair. Okay. So now you have to say that. So here comes Benny Morris. He says, I've said. He says, in Kfar Qasim, they killed civilians. And I've written about that. So you're just admitting. You're selecting, as Steven says, you cherry pick. Oh, the cherry has been picked. The cherry's been picked. Kfar Qasim, located 20 kilometers east of Tel Aviv. So, was there a massacre? Okay, this was in 1956. Kfar Qasim massacre. It was perpetuated by Israeli border policemen within Israeli territory against Israeli citizens and far from any battlefront. I mean, the fact that it's happening inside of Israel against a whole city or a whole village, and all the victims were peaceful citizens who were citizens. Yeah, I guess it would be pretty fucking hard for a historian to try to say that the Israeli government never targeted civilians. By the way, his point was, too, that he said, not that you acknowledge that they happened, but that you would condemn. When you say this, you never condemn those actions. You just say, in Kfar Qasim, they killed civilians, and I've written that. Was that all you said about it? They killed civilians? I mean, I don't know what they say the total number. They killed 49 residents of one village, including children, in cold blood in just 1 hour. They were shooting people at close range. Oh, okay. I think I remember this one. This was about them like imposing a curfew without telling anybody, knowing that people would be coming in after 5 p.m., hundreds of them, because they're coming home from work or from wherever. Like nobody knew that they had to be in their home before 5 p.m. and they're just like coming home. So anyone who came home, men, women, or children, they were ordered to shoot and kill anyone they saw outside of their home after 5, making no distinction between men, women, children, and those returning from outside the village. When villagers returned to their home after 5 p.m., border police stopped them on the western side of the village, made them get out of their vehicles, and shot them at close range. They attempted to cover it up, but news spread. Yeah, in 1 fucking hour. Can't fucking imagine that. Unfucking believable. So yeah. They tried to cover it up. Did you talk about that? Did you condemn that they did that and then tried to cover it up? You cherry pick. No, Benny Morris, you mispronounced I. You meant to say I cherry pick. Because that's what you're doing in this. That's exactly what you just did. So that was in the 50s. Norm's like, okay, let's fast forward. What did you say about the Lebanon War? Benny Morris, ever the dumb fuck troll. What did I say? I don't have to stand by anything I wrote. You don't remember? Okay, allow me. And then Stephen tries it again. He goes, uh-oh, now we're reading from a book from... He's probably elbowing Lex like, come on, he's not allowed to do that anymore. Okay, now he's reading from Benny's book. So it happens that I had no interest in the Israel-Palestine conflict as a young man. Benny says, this is true. Norm Finkelstein, until the 1982 Lebanon War. So, Benny, he's reading from your book, and you can't even let him say one complete sentence without butting in to tell us that it's true. That's true. I'm just reading your book. Yeah, and my book is true. So that's why I'm saying it's true, because it's true. Okay, man. Just calm your fucking tits. I'm trying to read this to you to tell you something. Benny, yep, he's lost the passage. I'll find it. Okay, real quick, while he's searching for that, you bring up something that's really important that a lot of people don't draw a distinction between, in that there is just causes for war and there is just ways to act within a war. And these two things principally do have a distinction from one another. Correct. However, while I appreciate the recognition of the distinction, the idea that the cause for war that Hamas was engaged in, I don't believe, if we look at their actions in war or the statements that they've made, it doesn't seem like it had to do with territorial acquisition. No. By taking land back. No. The point I was making was what was Hamas trying to achieve militarily on October 7th? And I was pointing out that the focus had been very much on Hamas attacks on civilians and atrocities and so on. I'm not saying those things should be ignored. What I'm saying is that what's getting lost in the shuffle is that there were extensive attacks on military and intelligence facilities. As far as the other aspects are concerned, because I think either you or Lex asked me about the legitimacy of those attacks. I said I'm unclear whether the efforts by Hamas to seize Israeli population centers in and of themselves are illegitimate. as opposed to actions that either deliberately targeted Israeli civilians or actions that should reasonably have been expected to result in the killing of Israeli citizens. Those strike me as, by definition, illegitimate. I want to be very clear about that. I have illegitimate means you condemn them? I don't know, Benny. Does saying that happened mean you condemn it? Does saying that happened, I said that it happened in my book, is that condemning it? Because now you seem to really like pretend like you, because he already made that point. He made that point twice. He's just reiterating the same point. He's just rewording it. Right? Steven's fucking word salad question was just him saying, I don't believe, it doesn't seem like it had to do with territorial acquisition. He's like, I didn't say that it had to do with territorial acquisition. He said seizing territory. But that's like, if you and all your guys are around a whole area and you've neutralized anyone on the other side with weapons, we could say you've seized the territory. I don't know if they were planning to like acquire it full time, because I think they knew there was going to be a counterattack, right? But yeah, so Benny now wants to be like, so do you condemn them? Which in a debate, asking your opponent to condemn something, all that's doing is trying to, I guess, challenging them to condemn that. You won't condemn them. I'll condemn them right now. They are condemned. Ah, now that your condemnation has been added, because I guess the idea is if enough of us all condemn something, it'll somehow get hurt. And Moeen, because again, just like Norm, he takes his words very seriously. He considers the words he uses, and he uses them purposely. So if he says they are illegitimate, and he goes, illegitimate means you condemn them? And he says, no, illegitimate means they are not legitimate. I have a problem condemning on your side. Yes. Classic. Finishing sentences. Finishing your opponent's sentence with your own little wisp. Right? Finishing your opponent's sentences by putting words in their mouth. I have a problem condemning your side. Yes. I won. He just said he has problems condemning his own side. I win. Where's my giant cup and flowers? Because I just won the argument. Did you hear what he said? He said he has a problem condemning his own side. Because he's fucking biased. And I'm not. So I win. Benny, what? He just gets more and more worm-like as the debate goes on. We are near pretty much the halfway mark in the entire debate of this 5 hours. We're in the middle of hour 3, and Benny's being a real gumball. condemning your side, yes. And Moeen, ever the patient, reasonable man, says, no, not condemning my side. He's like an episode of Star Trek, you know? That's what it is. And then he's having this frustrating like conversation with like a gloggy alien guy who's like, this alien race, they're all sophists, and they get into the most tedious arguments when you just try to tell them a simple thing. And they're always combative, and they always feel like they need to win a debate against you. So even making a simple agreement as to when to meet up will be an adversarial kind of conversation where you're left feeling like you lost something, like you lost the respect of the audience in that exchange. And you didn't get any of your ideas out, and you were highly misunderstood. So this is a terribly dangerous group to deal with. Are you sure you can do it, Captain Moeen? Captain Rabbani? Yes. I think through calm and rational discussion and patience, I think I can get my message out. So here we go. Illegitimate means they're not legitimate. You see, I have a problem condemning your own side. Yes. No, not condemning my side. I have a problem with selective outrage. I have a problem with selective condemnation. And as I explained to you a few minutes ago, in my decades of appearing in public and being interviewed, I've never been asked to condemn an Israeli action. I've never been asked for a moral judgment on an Israeli action. Exclusive requests for condemnation has to do with what Palestinians, and just as importantly, I'm sure if you watch BBC or CNN, when is the last time an Israeli spokesperson has been asked to condemn an Israeli act? I've never seen it. Boom. Because before he didn't get specific, but it's like, okay, Stephen, okay, Benny, ball's in your court. Cite a BBC or a CNN segment where an Israeli spokesperson was asked to condemn an Israeli act. Show it to us. Show it to us. Because we haven't seen one. Granted, I don't watch BBC or CNN. So maybe you said it, but maybe you can find it. Maybe you can sleuth. Maybe you can provide some evidence for that they're wrong. Or as you said, that the Israelis condemned every single night on every single channel. Let's get some examples. You should have like a supercut. You should be able to throw together a supercut of it. And then here comes Stephen with another face slappable moment. This is the part of the stream where we formally request for Stephen Bozell, please pick your hand up like this, hard as you can. You gotta slap your own face hard as you can, right across the face. Do it. We officially, respectfully, cordially demand that that's what you do right now. And as soon as you're done slapping your face, you slap it as hard as you can. And also you have to move your head in the direction of your hand to even increase the speed. That's required. After you do that, you must slap yourself in the dick as hard as you can. Okay? And then you are to repeat step 1 and then continue on to step 2. So it's slap in the face, hard as you can, slap in the dick, hard as you can. Slap in the face, hard as you can, slap in the dick, hard as you can. Okay? Stephen, these are your instructions. Okay? You need to follow these instructions. You must do the routine, slap in the face, hard as you can, slap in the dick, hard as you can. That's 1. That's called 1 rep. Okay? 1 rep includes 2 slaps. The first slap is on the face, the second slap is on the dick. So you're doing 2 slaps. That's called 1 round, okay? Or 1 rep, all right? So you must do, let's say, I'm gonna assign you to 1 rep per 5 seconds, right? So let's say, okay, we'll say 10 a minute, 10 reps per minute. We're going to start you off on that. So 10 reps per minute means you're going to do it 10 times, 10 reps. And you remember a rep is a slap in the face and a slap in the dick. Okay. You have to do it like that. And those, they can't happen too far apart. It has to be at this rhythm. Slap in the face hard as you can, slap in the dick hard as you can. So you have to hit your dick when you say dick. You have to say it out loud. Slap in the face hard as you can, slap in the dick hard as you can. You need to do 10 of those every minute for 8 hours. Every day. Forever. That's my ruling. That's my ruling, Stephen. No, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear. I'm done hearing your excuses, Stephen. Stephen. Oh, really? Oh, really? Well, maybe you should have thought of that before you said, I don't think we condemn the Arab side either, though, right? I don't think there's any condemnation. Stephen, if you didn't want to get sentenced to a lifetime of dick and face self-slapping, then why did you say that? I mean, what am I supposed to do? Put yourself in my shoes. What would you do? If you were the judge of all just and rhetorical punishments for dipshits, in the case of the people versus dipshit number 58724, I'd say, hey, I mean, you'd say, hey, he's gonna slap his face and dick forever for the rest of his life. Obviously. In the face of this, what you just said, and then what you went on to say. I think the reason why it comes up is because there's no shortage of international condemnation for Israel. Now, it depends on what you mean by international condemnation. If you don't count Europe or the USA, yeah. There's a lot of countries who condemn Israel, right? But they're kind of not the ones that matter. Because a lot of them are like non-interventioning countries, like fucking China and fucking Pakistan, fucking North Korea, shit like that. There's no shortage of condemnation for Israel. There are 50 billion UN resolutions. You've got Amnesty International. You got multiple bodies of the UN. You got now this case for the ICJ. So there's no question of if there's condemnation for Israel. I'm sorry, but can I interrupt you? In 1948, the entire world stood by the establishment of a Jewish state. Benny, no, except the Arab states and the Muslim states. Yeah. Benny Morris, do you want acceptance and love and allyship with Arab and Muslim states? Well, you fucking got that, man. You dumb fuck. You've got the fucking Saudi Arabians. They're on your side. Got that Saudi royalty with backing you up. The Western democracies, that's what you're saying. Western democracies support the establishment of Israel. Stephen, my quick question was, you said that you believe that this is a very short one. You don't have to. You don't have to what? You think that there's an argument to be made that the people of Hamas and the Islamic Jihad or whoever participated had a just cause for war. Maybe they didn't do it in the correct way, but they maybe had a just cause for war. So here, this is so far his question lead up. He hasn't even got to his question yet. He's just reiterating what he believes Rabbani's side is. He's trying to summarize it in just a very glib little condensed way, but whatever. Moin Rabbani says, I don't think there's a maybe there. The Palestinians have, okay, you think they absolutely had a just cause for it. Yes. Do you think that Israel has a just cause for Operation Swords of Iron? No, of course not. So Operation Swords of Iron is the barrage against Gaza. That's the whole big Gaza attack. No, of course not. All right. Stephen, all right, you can say your quote. So again, Stephen, you had nothing to say. You had no argument to make. All you did was trying to pull something out of the record. It's like a defense lawyer, right? During the prosecution's case, when they ask questions, they're just trying to get like quotes and things. They're fishing for shit that they can try to use against the witness to impeach them. And that's what Stephen's doing. It's entirely inappropriate in this context, in this situation. Because what are you proving? You spent all this time. My quick question was, you said that you believe, like, what do you, dude, why are you just summarizing what he said? Not once, not twice, but thrice. In very clear, distinct English. He rephrased it, and he said it again. And he rephrased it, and he said it again. And then he rephrased it and said it again. Because both of you are being such disingenuous dipshits that you're pretending like, I don't get what you're saying. Of course you got what he's saying. And then Stephen's like, okay, so I just real quick, I think I kind of have just this quick question for you. So you think that like the people of Gaza, be they Hamas or be they the whoever, the Islamic Jihad, and you're saying that they had a just cause for war? Maybe that they didn't do it in the correct way, but that maybe they had a just cause for war? I didn't say maybe. Oh, okay. So you absolutely think they had. Oh, okay. Okay. Well, yeah, interesting. And do you think Israel has a right to just like fucking bomb and kill and destroy the shit out of Gaza? No. Oh, okay. All right. Okay, what are you saying? It's like, okay, that's on the record. I got you on the record, Moeen. You said that Hamas had a just cause for war and that Israel didn't. Okay? What did you accomplish, Stephen? What did you accomplish by that? You've shown that the opposing side has an opposing position than you. It's like going to it's like a Christian atheist debate, and the Christian goes, so you say that of all the gods, and specifically the God of Christianity, Yahweh, you say that you don't believe actually exists at all. No. Oh, okay. Interesting. And then, so then Jesus Christ wasn't the Son of God to you, right? Well, no, because I don't believe there was a God, or there is a God. Oh, okay. All right. So go ahead. Say your quote. Say your little quote. It's such a it's a nothing. It's like, oh, so you have the opposing position, huh? Is that right? Oh, and tell me this, do you approve of my position? No. No, you don't. Okay. So you're on sort of the kind of the opposite perspective of this debate then. Would you say that, Mr. Rabbani? Yes, I would. Okay, thank you. No further questions. No further questions. Great job, Stephen. Great job. You're such a and then he's like, you can say your quote. Because remember, this is all a digression. Poor Norm Finkelstein was trying to read a certain passage from the book, and then he got lost, and he's looking for it, and then that's when this little aside is happening. Stephen is such a fucking fantastic moron that it is terrifying. No quote. Norm Finkelstein's got a lot of bangers. That's definitely a banger, Finkelstein quote. And it's because it's so true. And it is evergreen. Mr. Bonelli, you are such a fantastic moron that it is terrifying. And I'm terrified. I'm terrified right now. So finally, Norm speaks. He's found the passage. He's talking about how you, Benny Morris, are a weaselly little worm, and you are a liar because you don't call out when Israel does war crimes. You deny when they do war crimes. You deny when they do war crimes. And this whole debate, you've been trying to say that Norm Finkelstein's the one who denies atrocities. But Norm doesn't deny atrocities. He just said, yeah, if they happened, they happened. And if they didn't, they didn't. And if they happened, they happened. And if they didn't, then did it. I don't try to deny reality like you, Benny. Benny, that's what you do. Benny, that's what you do. Ooh, we got a big old red chunk here. I like these big chunks. I like when people kind of get the chance to go off. I don't like their back and forths. Their question and answer, when they bicker, when they fucking interrupt each other, it's not good. It diminishes the quality of everything. It diminishes the side that is doing the interrupting. Okay? Because you lose charitability from the audience. The more you frustrate people by let me just hear what they have to say about it. And then let me hear what you have to say about it. And while you're talking, he'll be quiet. So while he's talking, you be quiet. We don't need you to interject little bullshit and little facts and goddamn, you interject when he says something that you disagree with, that you think is false, and you also fucking interject and interrupt when he says something you think is true. So you're so obviously being a dipshit, annoying little fuck. Can you imagine Benny Morris as like a fucking 8-year-old? Oh my God. Oh my God. He was probably a monster. 8-year-old monster. All right, you can say your quote. First of all, on this issue of double standards, which is the one that irks or irritates Moeen, you said you're not a person of double standards. Unlike people like Moeen, you hold high a single standard, and you condemn deliberate Israeli attacks on civilians. And I would say that's true for the period up until 1967. And I think it's accurate, your account of the first Intifada. There, it seems to me, you're in conformity with most mainstream accounts. And the case of the First Intifada. Surprisingly, you used Arab human rights sources like Al-Haq, which I think Moeen worked for during the First Intifada. That's true. But then something very strange happens. So, let's illustrate it. Wait. The something strange which happened is that the Arabs rejected Israel's peace offers. Okay, wait. That's what happened. By accepting the Oslo agreements. Yeah. Not the... I'm talking about Camp David. If we have time, I know the record very well. I'd be very happy to go through it with you. But let's get to those double standards. So this is what you have to say about Israel's invasion of Lebanon in 1982. You said, Israel was reluctant to harm civilians, sought to avoid casualties on both sides, and took care not to harm Lebanese and Palestinian civilians. You then went on to acknowledge the massive use of IDF firepower against civilians during the siege of Beirut, which traumatized Israeli society. Morris quickly enters the caveat that Israel, quote, tried to pinpoint military targets, but inevitably many civilians were hit. That's your description of the Lebanon War. As I say, that's when I first got involved in the conflict. I'm a voracious reader. Mr. Morris. I read everything on the Lebanon War. I would say there's not a single account of the Lebanon War in which the estimates are between 15 and 20,000 Palestinian Lebanese were killed. Overwhelmingly civilians. The biggest bloodletting until the current Gaza genocide. Biggest bloodletting. I would say I can't think of a single mainstream account that remotely approximates what you just said. So, leaving aside, I can name the books. Voluminous, huge volumes. I'll just take one example. Now, you'll remember, because I think you served in Lebanon in 82. Am I correct on that? Yeah. So you will remember that Dov Jeremiah kept a war diary. So with your permission, allow me to describe what he wrote during his diary. He writes, "The war machine of the IDF is galloping and trampling over the conquered territory, demonstrating a total insensitivity to the fate of the Arabs who are found in its path. A PLO-run hospital suffered a direct hit. Thousands of refugees are returning to the city. When they arrive at their home, many of which have been destroyed or damaged, you hear their cries of pain and their howls over the deaths of their loved ones. The air is permeated with the smell of corpses. Destruction and death are continuing." Yeah, point made. The point you're making, actually. Oh yeah, back to this part. The point you're making, actually. Does that sound like your description of the Lebanon War? Remember, Norm said, I can name the books. Voluminous, huge volumes. I'll just take one example, right? So right up front, Norm is qualifying that this is simply one example from voluminous books. Because later on, they're going to say that Norm is basing the whole Lebanon war off of one diary entry. Oh yeah, there was just one guy who said the air was permeated with the stench of corpses. Now Benny is on the defensive. You thought he was defensive before? He is hip-hopping mad. He's as angry as a bull in a fucking rodeo. They're all laughing at you, Benny. They're laughing at you. I bet his cockles are up. Whatever cockles are. You know, when you're just like, oh, I'm under attack. They're making me look stupid. I'm not the stupid one. They're the stupid ones. No! Right? That's happening on the inside. But he's trying to play it cool. He's a fucking 87-year-old man, so he's got to keep the calm exterior. So they're going to do this through humor. It's a very beautiful culture. They channel their defensiveness through aggressive taunting and humor and trolling. It's his natural defense mechanism. But now he's mad and he can't be humorous. So now he's going to pretend. Now he's going to basically try to say, no, the point you're making is not even the point you're making. You forgot what point you were making. The point is that Israelis strongly criticize their own side. And that's actually a virtue. So he's saying the fact that you found this really unfavorable towards Israel account in history doesn't at all prove that Israel is terrible and genocidal. No, not at all. It proves that Israelis are very honest and fair-minded when it comes to criticizing their own people. That's the best you got, right? It's like, hey, here's a historical account of atrocities done by Israelis. The author's Palestinian. I don't believe it. It's lies. Well, here's a historical account, and it was written by an Israeli. Oh, well, you see, that's because that's actually a good sign. It means Israelis are not afraid to criticize their own side. So you know they're always fair. Because they'll even criticize their own side. They won't hesitate. That's why all Jews are always honest all the time, because they know they'll self-police. They'll police within themselves. They won't ever do atrocities because someone from within would strongly criticize them. And it happens all the time. Yeah. Iron sharpens iron, you know? So the Israeli government encourages all of their citizens to strongly criticize any actions at all that they find immoral or distasteful. Sure, Benny. I love it. Let me just finish my sentence. The point you're making, which you somehow forgot. How can he forget his point? Benny, his point was, you are full of shit. You are running defense for Israel. In your later history, when you talk about the Lebanon-Israel war from 1982, you downplay the atrocities. You don't talk about the atrocities. You don't talk about atrocities. You are not being honest, Benny Morris. That's what he said. He said, you're not being honest. He said, here's what you said about the Lebanon war, and here's an example of what other people said about that war. And they are stark in their contrast. Okay? Benny has no defense. He says, forget my description. Forget it. The point you're making, which you forget, is that we criticize our own side. Arabs never do that. Arabs never criticize their own side. You don't find that. You don't find that, do you, Benny? Isn't that fucking adorable? Isn't that fucking adorable? Like, he knows it's a virtue to admit when you were wrong, to criticize your own side. That's like a universal virtue. So whenever there's a chance for that, sometimes that's all he's left with, right? It's giving George Washington chopped down the cherry tree, but because he admitted it, he's not in trouble at all. Even though it should be like, all right, well, you're fucking grounded. You realize that tree took 15 years to start bearing fruit. And it's dead now. Okay? You're in a lot of trouble. Why the fuck did you do that? And by the way, I appreciate that you told the truth about it. That doesn't mean you're not in trouble. If you'd have lied to me about it, you'd have been in even more trouble. But you're still in trouble. Now get out of here, you little scamp. Little George Washington. No, this has the air of how stupid I thought that story always sounded. Because, you know, we all know it's a fucking myth. George Washington and the cherry tree. But to me, it was such a stupid fucking myth. That was like, you can be bad, but just don't lie about it. And then you're all good. Which doesn't really work in real life, by the way. It's called incriminating yourself. It's called self-snitching. Let me finish my sentence. The point you were saying was okay, I'm done with this. I'm sick of it. Can't stands no more. We've been almost 3 hours, so let's end it. Let's call it a day. Let's call it a week. Or no, I guess it's only Tuesday. Well, let's call it a day, though. It's a day. And free Palestine from the river to the sea. Never forget that. Remember that it's not complicated. There's just a lot to untangle. It's not complicated at all to be against genocide. So stand for the Palestinians and learn about it. Learn as much as you can. I highly recommend Electronic Intifada. Electronic Intifada is a great website to go to get some info about the stuff. Electronic Intifada is a great website to get to the stuff. It's .net. It's .net. It's .net. So, anyway, that's it for tonight. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Uh-oh. Oh, no.
I'm trying to.